David also uses the term defy, and that actually translates into shame. And so he's saying he's going to shame the Israelites.
For me, the one that I chose was, I personally do not believe that artificially given authority gives you the right to disrespect someone.
Okay.
My brother had a paper delivery route for the New York Times. He got it as a second job, okay? And we're both grown. We were both in our late 20s at the time. And so on the weekends, he would have double the circulation. So he called me up one weekend. He said, Keith, on the weekends, can you help me out? Can you help me deliver these papers? Because it's too many of them on the weekend. So it was kind of something that me and my brother did, and I really did look forward to it. I hated doing it, but I looked forward to being with my brother because we like to hang out. We're good friends. Well, it just so happens that one day we were in D.C. It's early in the morning because we would have to be there at like 2 in the morning. We started delivering papers at 4. We had to be finished by about 5:30, 6 o'clock. And a police car rolls up. Now, my brother owned a Dodge Colt convertible, okay? The top is down. In the back seat is a pile of papers, newspapers. You see us putting them on the front steps. Police officer rolls up, and the first thing he asks us is, "What are you doing?" And my first thought, because at that time I was one of those people who really had a very smart alecky mind, my first thought was, you will never make detective. So we told him we're in the neighborhood, we work for the New York Times, we're delivering newspapers. Well, he asked us if we had seen something. So he revealed that a crime had happened in one of the neighborhoods, and he asked if we had seen anything. And we're trying to be polite and helpful. We're like, no, we've been in this neighborhood for about 5, 10 minutes. We hadn't seen anyone. You know, in fact, you were the first car we've actually seen on the street since we've been here. He gets frustrated, and then he says something that totally blew my mind. If you are still here when I come back, I'm going to arrest you. Okay, smart alecky mind went to smart alecky mouth real quick. And I said, okay, fine, if you want to arrest us, go ahead. You can book us for delivering papers. Oh, wait a minute, that's against the First Amendment. So at that point in time, he decided to roll off. We could tell he was mad. My brother's like, no, you really shouldn't have said that to me. I was like, I don't care. That badge does not give him the right to be a jackass.
That's real.
It does not.
Right.
I'm sorry you could not find the criminal, but you don't hassle 2 law-abiding people doing a job because you can't do yours because you wear a gun and a badge. Every time I've seen a police car, it says on the side somewhere, a lot of them, the older ones there, protect and serve, not be bossy and stupid.
Yeah.
So
and
that's
it
how I
gets to
felt
the
about
systemic
it.
issue of...
Yeah, so it went from powerless to powerful real quick.
Right? And it gets to the systemic issue of abusive authority and, to your point, 2 black men rolling up in a convertible, how they perceive a person of color, 2 black men at that, right? Anybody else? Yes.
Hi. My one major event was when I became partially paralyzed, which was like just last year. And, okay. Forgive me, I'm shy when it comes to people. What made me feel powerful is that I could use my mind more to think of ways around things or new ways to do them. And what made me feel powerless is there are some places where they're non-accessible that I used to go into that I can't go to now. So, yeah, that's it.
So that's a systemic issue too, right? Like accessibility for all people. And oftentimes we are in our own seats of power, whether they are individual or not, or it could be in a collective, but because we are perceived as a minority, we forget people. And that puts the impetus on us on how we view and use our power, or how we don't use our power. So thank you for those two wonderful examples. So everybody's got how we're gonna do this power analysis, yeah? All right. So let's get back to David and Goliath. In our last episode, right, we were talking about who had the power and who was attempting to shift the power. So, told you I believed in active learning. Ready? You're going to tell me, Goliath and the Philistines have the power. Slide, please. Next. Yes. Goliath and the Philistines have the power. Why do they have the power? So you just told me on the previous one that Goliath has the power. The Philistine commander the Philistines' god. All right, we'll start there. Why do they have the power? What do the Philistines represent? Say again. They were big. Uh-huh. They were warriors. That's right. And they used their size to intimidate. They were oppressors. The Philistines.
Could it be that since the Israelites had come into the promised land, the Philistines also had the home field advantage?
They had the home field advantage. Somebody was actually coming into their house. And they were trying to hold down the court. They're trying to hold down the fort. What else? So how do they demonstrate possessing control and authority? They had Goliath and other Goliaths, if that's a word. Grammar and spelling don't count for me, okay? Not up here. Say again?
Talking norms.
Uh-huh.
Talking about his God, talking about him and his size, trying to discourage them before even the battle started.
And as we're reading the Bible, what does that mean? You have someone else talking about their other God to people who have come in and said, my God, we are the chosen ones by God, right? We labeled the Philistines' God as the Philistines' God, when they might just be like, yeah, that's our God. But they said, no, our God is God, right? So, the Philistines in the Iron Age actually were known for their military might. They were known for their technology, their military technology, and that's how they had a very imposing figure. That's why when we look back in the beginning of the chapter and they describe Goliath with his javelin, with the cover, right? If we go back and we look at 17:5-8, they go into extensively, they take time to describe his armor. Because at that time, they were known for all of their might and their military prowess. And their technology, and yeah, their technology wasn't like drones, but their technology was, their weapons of choice in that day. Say again? That was their arsenal, right? So they are representing a very powerful group. So military might, technology, home court. Along the way, Goliath also says that whoever the loser is, they will serve the winner. Serve meaning you then become our slaves. So you have this long-standing group of people. It's their space. They've got a big military. If you lose, you become slaves. And the Israelites, I would have said, because I have a smart mouth, again? No. Right? Goliath, so when we're talking about the slaves, we're also saying theologically that they're going to be under somebody else's God again. They just got out. Remember yesterday, William talked about how Rahab helped the spies check out the space, and they made it over. Wait a minute, today, we're going to have to fight so that we don't have to deal with what we dealt with years ago, which was like a blink of an eye. So that's the writers telling you in multiple ways, right? You're not just going to lose who you are, you're going to lose all of who you are, culturally, theologically. So David also uses the term defy, and that actually translates into shame. And so he's saying he's going to shame the Israelites, shaming who they are culturally, who they are theologically. He's throwing down a gauntlet. And up until then, they haven't really been losing, right? Like, we know the end of the story, but if we were watching it in a movie, this is the scene where some of us might be like, how's this really gonna go down? Okay? And Saul, this king, who in some ways is maybe not as big as Goliath, but he's bigger than David, looks at Goliath's challenge is like, nah, man, I'm good. And so here it is, we're learning that the king of the people who are supposed to be leading the Israelites does not want to face the champion. So he may be willing to lose the kingdom, subsequently his God, their God. That's big. So what we realize is, remember, they left, they came to the promised land, they being the Israelites, because they needed a space, they were the chosen, and want to have a space in which they can be all of who they are, and yet they are acting like the other nations that are in this same space. To me, that's as if they're acting powerless, because nobody stepped up yet. So, when you think about on Sunday, when Pastor was speaking, he referenced 2 Timothy 1:7. For God hasn't given us a spirit of fear, but here they are in a spirit of fear. Nobody stepped up yet. And a spirit of fear cultivates evil, and that weaponizes the power. Because you who had the power have relinquished it because no one has stepped up into this space to come after this challenge. Fear weaponizes the power. Next slide. So David has power. Why? Why does David have power? Past experience with God. Yep. He believes he can. Yep. He has no fear. He's anointed as king. Just in the previous book, just in case you missed the first time that he was literally anointed, we are coming back to a space in which David is stepping up like a champ. He is smaller in stature, and Goliath says, yo, this youngster's coming to step to me? I'll run this. And he says, I have God on my side. And in that moment when he says to Saul, so look, I can do this, I have experience, I am a shepherd. And as a shepherd, for those people within the ancient Near East, shepherd was the religious term for king. Where else have we heard the term shepherd in the Bible? The Lord is my shepherd. So here it is. He's like, look, I got this. I'm a shepherd. And when all of these wild beasts have come after me, the lions and the bears, I have handled them. Oh my. And Saul's like, cool, here, let me give you my armor. But David does what? Takes it off. Because that armor belongs to somebody and represents something totally different. And he steps into the fullness of his power through the strength of the Lord. And not only does he step into it with action, he then says it. So, next slide, please. God is invincible. Invincible. Too powerful to be defeated or overcome. David says, I will get, no, let's go. I'm going to skip almost all the way down to 47. And that all this assembly may know that the Lord does not save by sword or spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hand. He recognizes the invincibility of God. He acknowledges it in a way that Saul has no clue about. And so at this point, we now see again that he is God's chosen one to start the Davidic line. Because somewhere along the line, there's another shepherd in another part of the book, right? Yeah. That tracks from the start of the Davidic kingdom. So despite humanity's attempt to control the Philistines, even Saul, God ultimately remains in power. Remember, the people asked for a king, the Israelites, they asked for a king. We want a king, we want a king. Remember, Samuel's like, nah, man, chill with that. That doesn't work. We want a king, we want a king. All right, I'll give you a king. Saul doesn't really work out. David comes along. And even David, in some ways, he's got a couple of flaws. Challenges women, some of those other things, right? And so we know that he too has some challenges, but ultimately, God's invincibility, because if we were living in that time, in that moment of David succeeding and besting Goliath, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know that years down the line, someone is going to give birth to the baby Jesus, who then grows into this man that transforms in 2015 the lives of people. So, next slide, please. The one who is the most powerful and remains in power is God. But David also realizes the systemic issues, right? The Philistines, they have this place and space in which the Israelites need to politically and militarily obtain. Saul is not worth his name, he is not worth his weight in salt, which was really important back in the day, right? And he steps in and he recognizes my action, my belief in God, is then manifested. The faith without works is dead. Steps into the next action. So he realizes for the Israelites, because if Goliath represents the Philistines and their belief, David represents and their belief in the culture, the theology. And to be able to ensure that that continues, the one thing that he has to identify is the thing that has to get done. And the thing that has to get done is we got to fight Goliath. And he's anointed. And he trusts God. And he trusts and he understands the invincibility of God. Next slide, please. So, when we fast forward and we recognize that God is invincible, even if we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. When we think about the power dynamics that played out last week and what's happening today, God's invincibility, David Ruth assumed that the power was white supremacy. He assumed all of those things that we talked about was his and his alone. And I didn't get to show you this, but let's flip the page here. So within the Emmanuel massacre, who has the power? David Ruth, the state governments of South Carolina, federal government, law enforcement, the legislative, judicial systems, the Emmanuel members, the victims' families, and the US citizens, and I'm sure you all can come up with some other people that I've forgotten. And what's that power? For David Ruth, and this is not extensive, right? For David Ruth, it's violence. The government can prosecute. The federal government can investigate as a hate crime. The legislative and judicial system can change the law. The victims are now honored in their death by the response of their families with forgiveness and God's love. And US citizens around the country, and if you haven't already, go to moveon.org, and you can sign a petition to ask them to take the flag down. And they have marched, and we've had vigils, and you can advocate, and now there's a larger conversation around inequities and structural inequities. And so the potential targets initially for David Ruth was black people. I'm pretty sure he didn't know the historic ramifications of Mother Emanuel. I don't think he thought that far. He awoke a sleeping giant. When you think about how you can talk to the state governments of South Carolina, you got family members there, you need to make sure that they press the state governments around prosecuting David Ruth and hate groups. And that goes for any state that you're in. Same thing for law enforcement. We just talked about how we can pressure them to take down the Confederate flag, which other states have said, well, we're taking it down, but South Carolina voted it down today. So there still needs to be pressure. Okay? For Mother Emanuel members, they can engage other churches, and as a church, we can engage with them. The power of the church, the power of our witness, the power of our love, the power of recognizing God's invincibility and be able to walk in that. To do that not just with one church, but the multitudes of churches within the country and around the world. How we begin to talk about national policies. The victims can now use a platform for national policies. So all of these things are potential targets and how you can use it. So when you look at that sheet, I have, last slide. You got homework. I told you I believe in this active learning, right? Next slide. Think about one issue that you really care about. It may be one that has come up today, one that may remain in your prayers. That might be your litmus test. And when you think about not just prayer, but how are you going to help? Again, faith without works is dead. David is anointed. God is working through David, but David has to take steps. That is the action after you've assessed the power dynamics. And I've left you with the key questions that you can ask yourself once you've figured out what your issue is. What does equitable change look like? Who has the power? What does the power look like? Who's the target? Those things that we just talked about. And then what resources do you have or are you connected to? They may be here, like the social justice ministry, the health and wellness, for returning citizens, jail and prison, any number of ministries that we have here. What does it look like within your workplace? Do you work for a corporate body that has some connections, and do you organize people within and use your voice and influence within work and in other places? So that's your homework as we close out about power and David and Goliath. Amen? So, Pastor also referenced stillness, and I get so excited when I hear about health and how it connects to our practice. So we're going to take a couple of moments, seconds, to do some more breath work and stillness, because I've given you a lot to hold on to. And if you ever come to one of my yoga classes, I always end in Shavasana pose, because that's where we begin to integrate all of the information that we've learned from our bodies. And so it's the same thing here. I want everyone to just take a moment and find a comfortable seat in your chair. Place your feet on the earth where it's comfortable. If you're ensure that your back is feeling supported in one way or another. And then rest your hands on your thighs, maybe if that works for you, or somewhere that feels comfortable. the crown of your head reaching up towards the sky. And I want you to just follow your breath and notice your in-breath and your out-breath. Just notice it. Breathe in and breathe out at your pace. Feel your hips as they're supported on the chair. Notice your head as it rests on your neck and your shoulders. Breathe in and breathe out. God, we thank you for today. We thank you for the breath of life. You who breathed into us in that upper room, the Holy Spirit, to help us fully walk with you, to discern your word, and to act in love as we know and understand the invincibility of your love. And so we say thank you, Father. Thank you for allowing us to come together for another day, allowing us to learn and share from one another, inspiring us, and allowing us to take this, what we've learned, and share this, your word, and witness to others. God, I pray that everyone in here is covered by you as they get ready to return home and they pick up their children, their grandchildren, their nieces and nephews, and they come home to glorify you and worship with you and share with one another. I thank you and I lift up your name. Amen.